decisions are painful. Hard ones are even more painful because at times it means someone's going to get hurt. Pain is part of the human experience, and at times those decisions need to be made in order to kill off a problem, kill off a relationship that has become problematic. And that's part of what is going on here with Leo Messi. And when you have someone in your life that is about wins and losses alone, that chalks them up, it ends up not being healthy. And then the people that I'm talking about, of course, is the Barca board. Because with them, everything is about winning, is about image, is about how they end up looking, how they end up being displayed. Good, many times, in their image, or in their perspective, or in their perception. Bad in many others. And that's when they don't care. But as long as they win, as long as they end up getting their way, and that's what I mean by winning, because usually when they have had their way, it doesn't mean that it's been in the best interest of anyone or everyone involved. And this is why I bring up this question. Maybe the best thing that Leo Messi could have done would have been to just go and leave in May. As crazy as it sounds, maybe leaving in May was the best option for him, because it would have been something that could have helped him just get over it, just overcome what this situation has become. I mean, no one imagined in their wildest dreams that he was going to even execute that clause. Everyone thought, and company included, everyone thought that he was going to stay, that he was going to fulfill his commitments, that he was committed to his club 100%. But as time ended up showing him, not necessarily showing us, it didn't have to, it didn't matter what we were thinking, that wasn't reciprocal. For years we've known that Messi was the ace in the hole. He was the option to be able to have the team pull out a win or pull out a result time and time again. That ended up being the case. But whenever they needed to be pulled out of some type of economic problem or economic complication, he was the one they turned to. It wasn't necessarily crafty accounting. I mean, it was to kind of polish up or put a little bit more makeup on the numbers. But when it came to the hardcore statistics, the hardcore cold cash numbers, it was about him. Let's backtrack a little bit. In the month of, I believe it was in the month of January, February, when Deloitte comes out with their report saying, hey, this year Barcelona will be the first club in the history of sport to be able to generate 1 billion euros. 1 billion. And if you look at that 1 billion, the net profit that Barcelona had ended up being 4 million. Bad managing, bad administration, bad leadership. But it was one player that constantly bailed them out. Made them look good, made them look like a model to follow, to emulate. And in certain aspects, that type of leadership has football where it's at right now. Yeah, of course we can talk about the Qatari sheiks, we can talk about all that other stuff. Yeah, of course. That's a viable and legitimate beef. But that's for another time. That's something else. That might be the next chapter in this conversation. But let's let that be for now. Because like I said before, he was committed, but that commitment wasn't reciprocal. So when you start to see that, whether it's in a relationship, at the affectionate level, at the intimate level, at the partnership level, at the business level, which the Barcelona-Messi relationship had pieces of that. They had ingredients that talked about those types of things. And of course, every so often, Bartomeu would come out and appeal to those types of emotions. Having him play for life, having him be committed to our club, to our culture, to more than our club, or more than a club, more than a culture. But when it came down to it, it was about money, because let's not kid ourselves. With the economic problems that Barcelona have right now, Messi once again ends up being their saving grace, or at least that's what they think right now, with that 700 million euro buyout clause. They want someone to be able to pay for it so they can end up kind of hiding and covering up what they've been able to mismanage. And once that money comes in, it'll slip right through. It'll go right through their hands because they have so much debt. They have so many things that they have to pay for. But it will make them look good. And at the end of the day, this is about saving face. This is about posturing. This is about being as powerful as possible. And we've seen just in the past 3 weeks how this team has become, how this club has become, how this board has devolved into more than doing everything in the best interest of the club, is doing everything in the best interest of staying in power. That's the Bartomeu legacy, in my opinion. You might disagree with that, and that's totally fine, because you might be just as right as I am, even more. If you start looking at what ends up being with this club, is that they don't care. They know that Messi's been the one that has generated billions upon billions. And it's the reality. He has ended up morphing into something maybe not as big as the club itself, but something apart that is just as big as it, but in a bit of a different dimension. Because many of the fans that are fans of the club now ended up being fans because of him. And only him. And their loyalty to that club is only based on him. And when he's gone, so are they. When the trophies are gone, so are they. When the winning is gone, so are they. So it's a very fine line. It's a very fine balance between one thing and the other. And that's exactly where things are. Because Messi knows that at this point he's on his own. He has his friends. Luis Suarez is always going to be by his side. He's already had a few of his friends come out and talk. But there's been some other friends that understand that maybe it's for their best interest. And that's when you start questioning people like Piqué, who we know, absolutely loves the political game, loves to be entrepreneurial, political, and talking about a lot of different issues at the same time. He loves that. So his silence, his radio silence, was pretty much blood-inducing to anyone's ears, as how loud it was. That's where you start to see who's who. That's where you start to see that maybe not everyone was by his side. We'll learn in the next few days and the next few hours who truly is by his side and who truly wants him to stay. And wants him to stay for the right reasons. Not just a little bailout, not just something that's going to help them in the short term. But then, if you think about it, when we talk about his career, or what's left of it, everything tends to be talked about in short term. Everything tends to be talked about in a bit of this short-termism. Because what's being talked about now is Ronald Koeman being this short term because the election's coming up in June, and how many things are hinged upon that. Excuse me, not in June, but in March. That's where things are hinged upon. And Messi sees it. Messi sees that the future's quite bleak at that club because of the way things have been managed, because of the lack of capital and reinvestment and all these other aspects of mismanagement that have not helped or promoted a sense of growth at the club. Meanwhile, the arch rivals end up investing and reinvesting in their future and reinvesting in their present time and time again. And that's why Real Madrid coming into the season are going to be the prohibitive favorites to win the league again. There's no doubt. There's no one that can compete with Real Madrid. And of course, we can get into conspiracy theories and talk about that. And that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, when you look at substance, there's no team that can beat them right now in Spain. Champions League, well, they're the ones that set the bar in terms of how inept Spanish football has become at the European level. But going back to Messi, and I digress, this is the time when you start to see all of his predictions at this point coming true. All of the things that he said, hey, look, if we don't improve, this is going to happen. If we don't try improving, this is going to happen. If this is not going to be done, this is what's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. As time went by, he ended up being proven right. Quique Setién was never the solution to a problem. Neither was Ernesto Valverde, who should have been sacked way before when he was sacked. Quique Setién, just a few weeks before he was hired, was out in the country, herding sheep, I guess, or at least that's the joke. After crashing out against Betis, that was his highlight of his career. Then they give him an even bigger task, which he failed even more miserably at. Nobody believed him. He never sold anything. He never could sell, especially with an assistant as temperamental and as high schoolish and sophomoric and I guess as prepotent as Eder Sarabia. But then again, that's not Eder Sarabia's fault, because what ended up being was him going into a situation where he was way over his head. Just because you know how to drive doesn't mean you can be a race car driver. And that was the situation with them. And Messi knew it. Messi told everyone. And Messi's not free from fault. He's also been part of the problem. Part of the problem in a good way, but also part of the problem. Little did we remember, or less we forget, that just 3 weeks ago they were on vacation before going on vacation again after that loss to Bayern Munich. They were on vacation prior to going and coming back for Champions League. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich were training, and it looked like some type of training montage from a movie, from a Rocky movie, I guess you could say. That's exactly how they looked. Meanwhile, Messi was with Luis Suarez in Ibiza, vacationing, having fun, after having lost the league title, that they had, not in the bag, but they were in first place, and they ended up slipping, and Real Madrid didn't. So keep that in mind. Keep all of the things that are happening in mind, and you start to ask yourself one question. Should he have left in May? Yeah. But then again, you're facing a club, a board that's all about wins, that's all about looking at their public image as their best interest. And they would have pointed out that was Messi. That's the player. That's your idol. That's the one that's leaving you and betraying you and this and that and the other. because he was leaving them high and dry if he would have left in May. But it would have been the least painful option. Because at this point, if he would have left in May, everyone would have already been over it. Would he have been Figo? No. But everyone would be over it by now. And like many cowards that have not made decisions, Barcelona, alongside with Messi, have already died 1,000 deaths.